Hey everyone, it's Dr. Rick. Thanks for tuning in. I wanted to introduce you to my new friend, Miwa Gardi, the owner of Endorphin Effect in Bartlett. Hi, Miwa.
Hi, Dr. Rick. Thank you for having me today. I'm excited to discuss all things lifestyle and health.
Yeah. So, Miwa, on this journey of mine that most folks are following, you're right down the street from my old Bartlett office.
Right.
And I'm just curious, and I'm sure people will be asking, how did you... This used to be an old Walgreens. How did you end up here in Endorphin Effect?
It's actually kind of a bizarre story. I wasn't looking out in the Bartlett area. I was actually looking north, probably in the Palatine area, and I had a couple clients already in the Bartlett area, and they mentioned this space to me, and I thought, there's no way I can take over a whole Walgreens. There's just too much space here. And one person came to me with it, a second person came to me with it, and then a third person, and I believe in this magic of three. You know, the third time, you've got to at least give it a shot and give it a try. So I walked in and I walked the space, and it just really kind of called to me, and it felt right. It felt, I looked at lots of different spaces. I wanted to create a spot where people come to change their lifestyles and become healthy and create something for their futures. And when I walked in here, it felt like the right energy in the right spot for me.
That is an inspiring story. It says a lot on the trust that some of us have in the process.
Yes.
I think it's a little bit daunting to, again, to toot my own horn, it's daunting to step out into unfounded paths.
Mm-hmm.
I've been an employee for 25 years, and to go into this direction, I think it's supposed to freak me out. However, for some reason, I'm not really being freaked out.
I feel like oftentimes when you're comforted by just knowing that there's something larger than you, that, for whatever reason, allows you to move forward and keeps you on the path that you're meant to be on. And it keeps your vision clear, because you know that there's someone and something, and it's just, there's something larger than us that's going to allow us to be great.
You know, that says a lot about, we talked earlier about how sometimes at least in the doctor office, it's a tough sell to talk about mindfulness or things like veganism. So I sometimes pull back a little bit.
Sure.
I don't want to scare anybody away, and
Right.
Sometimes, you know, you jump off the edge, nobody wants to feel that, it's very uncomfortable. But in talking about the universe and the feeling and just trusting, there's something when I take people on hikes, excursions, there's something that's said about when you're in the midst of, say, the Grand Canyon,
Right.
or on top of 14,000 feet.
Yes.
You feel like this small,
Right.
in a good way, that you belong to something greater.
Something larger.
Right, and it makes you think, wow, sometimes my problems, bills or back pain or cholesterol level, sometimes my problems aren't such a big deal.
No.
And I think that going on the lines of coaching, so you're also a coach
Yes,
too.
yes. So I take on a handful of clients, just running the business and teaching yoga classes, which is my real passion. Doesn't allow me to take on a whole lot of clients, but I do take on a handful, and the ones that I do, I just create a really wonderful relationship with, and we talk about all kinds of things, not just exercise in the gym, but we talk about food, and we talk about lifestyle, and we talk about emotional and physical and just outer stresses that can impact our lives and impact our health, and how to kind of combat that. And, you know, kind of just going back to mindfulness and veganism, I think it's daunting because people think that it's all in or nothing. And mindfulness can be something as small as being aware when you're standing at a traffic light of just some flowers right next to you, or the color of the car in front of you. And that's mindfulness right there, just being in the present. So it doesn't have to be this long meditation every night for 40 minutes, and that's what makes you mindful. I think mindfulness can be stages every day, and if we practice it little by little, it becomes who we are, and it doesn't have to be daunting.
Wow, you know, that's spoken in the words of a true coach. I think what we have to do is, we don't have to get people to come to us and come to our level of this is how intense it should be.
No.
We have to meet them on the mat or in the gym or on the
100%.
mat.
Yeah. It's like the first day that someone comes in with a new workout regiment or something. If they can't do a push-up, we have a modification. Well, there's a modification to a mindful practice. And even there, I mean, I'm sure you come across this often, Dr. Rick. There are days that it just feels right, and there are days that you're struggling with your meditation, and because there's too many thoughts and too many things going on in the world, but we give it our best shot, and all we can do is stay consistent. And I think that's part of the key to success is consistency.
Right, and along those same lines, forgiveness. I think that it's always nice to have a drive. And a drive is easier when there's a template and a schedule that's set.
Sure.
But we have to be forgiving, because if you asked me this morning that I work out, and I was running my schedule, and it's like, I want to do my workout, but I don't have time.
Yeah.
And certainly I have to be accountable to myself. Mm-hmm. But the way I do it is if I miss the workout for today, then I do twice as much tomorrow.
That's my motto too, is I try to make up for it, or, especially when I was training to run marathons, if I missed a run day and I was just too tired and I cut it short a couple miles, not only did I have to make up those 2 miles, but I made myself do double. And sometimes that feels like a form of punishment, because mentally we're thinking that I missed this, so I have to make up. And I think as I get older, there's this, like, exactly what you said, that forgiveness, not just for others, but, it has to start with us. And I think that's important.
Right, and meeting somebody where they lie, and then mm-hmm. constructing a way out of either suffering or stagnation.
Absolutely.
I think that's the beauty of a good coach. We have to think outside the box. The more tools a coach has, then the more applications that mm-hmm. we can modify to the patient or the client. To
the client, to the member, absolutely. So if this doesn't work, let's try something else. If this doesn't feel good today, let's get you a modification. I think we have to think fast on our feet.
Right, and that is the beauty of the investment. I think the other thing that I've noticed too in the clinic was when I mentioned to patients therapies or modalities outside of insurance, mm-hmm. suddenly I'm met with, "Whoop, I can't afford that,"
yes.
and I have to honor those words. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I have to tell them, well, if we're going down that road and we're going to be trusting in the system that is very insurance-based, mm-hmm. this is where we potentially can line up or end up. But this is potentially where the investment might come in. And I always say higher than lower, because
sure.
I think that insurance is supposed to be just in case.
Right.
But now everybody puts everything into insurance and no further investment.
Right.
Again, it comes down to trust, and trusting the doctor or the system is fair if you're in dire straits. I have somebody in the hospital right now, and she's being taken care of by my colleagues, but again, I'm not going to step in, but I would always say, let's try to play it forward before we mm-hmm. get to that point. Mm-hmm. And so, again, it's my job as a coach to get people to that point, but it's also my job to show them what potentially could happen, the benefits, the drawbacks,
yeah.
and what the investment would be worthwhile.
Right, and like you said, and I like what you said, is like the insurance and that line of practice should not be our first line of defense. That's our second line of defense. So prepping, throughout our lives, eating well and exercising and keeping movement within our bodies, keeping those joints going, that actually prevents us to even go down that other road, or at least delays it for as long as we possibly can. And again, I come back to that stages is maybe we do a little bit at a time. Just as you start moving, you do a little bit of it at a time. Those little steps become, at one point, there's a phrase, a mile is traveled by one, starting with just one step, and it couldn't be more true. So I really do believe that you're absolutely right. It's your second line of defense.
Yeah. So to working as a coach not only entails, at least as far as what I hear you practice, kind of along the same lines as parallel to me, mm-hmm. mindfulness.
Sure.
Activity, movement.
Movement is key.
Nutrition too.
Mm-hmm.
You
Absolutely.
teach nutrition?
I'm not a nutritionist. I haven't gone to any schooling, but I really live life by eat whole foods that are from the earth, and it's as simple as that. You know, the more color you can get into your diet, the more. I learned many years ago, if I can't pronounce an ingredient, I'm not putting it in my mouth. And right now, my family, my kids, you know, our refrigerator is stocked with fresh fruits and vegetables. We are predominantly plant-based family, and I don't have a lot in my pantry. My pantry is for, you know, being Indian, I've got a lot of beans and rice, and we have quinoa by the cases, but that's what my pantry is full of. And I really encourage people to kind of just bring some mindfulness into their kitchen. What do I have? When I come home from work, am I so hungry that I'm just grabbing things that, you know, are readily available, are convenient? Maybe we make healthy convenient. And there's so many different ways to do that. And that's what I really talk to my clients about, is just things that I've learned along the way through my journey. And I help them make it easier for them, because everyone, it's hard. It's not easy. It's hard. You come home from work, you've got to prep dinner. Maybe you've got to bring the kids to a soccer practice. There's always a lot going on, but if we have a plan and we're mindful, we can find success. And that's what I help my clients with.
Well, definitely the fuel that we put into the temple will fire up and hopefully engage the movements that we do in the mat, on the machine,
absolutely.
outside.
I always say I eat for performance. So if I know I've been out on the weekend and I have a couple drinks, I really don't perform too great on Monday morning. I really don't. My run is slow and sluggish, and I don't like feeling like that. So it reminds me that, you know, and everything in moderation is fine. I'm not saying you have to be this, you know, this fitness monk that doesn't do anything ever, and, you know, but I think, again, knowing that when I have that second glass of wine on Saturday night makes me kind of slow on Monday morning, that's awareness and that's mindfulness, and maybe I don't do it as often, or I save it for a special occasion, you know, things like that. So really, I think after a while, it becomes your food intake, your fuel becomes about performance.
Yep. And that leads me to a good point. I think a lot of the diseases that we see in the doctor's offices, in the hospitals, actually can be controlled, even before medicines.
Sure.
Just by changing around the nutrition that we eat, because of those hidden names and ingredients.
Yes.
So a lot of side effects, unfortunately. And sometimes when I have somebody that's, say, dealing with fibromyalgia or irritable bowel syndrome, by default, they narrow down their window of what they can eat for like a week.
Yes.
And then they suddenly start to feel better with more energy.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
then, and then letting in stuff again might get them down to the same road, but it's just it's such an arduous process to be able to read labels, understand the newest literature, interpret the data. I feel that's our job. We don't have to be nutritionists,
No.
but sometimes if we model, what would we use as fuel for how intense of a workout are we going to do?
Absolutely, absolutely. And then, is it okay if I share a little story about Carolyn?
Sure, yeah.
So just because you just mentioned right now about how you come into, you know, patients or clients, in my case, come in and they're talking to their doctors and there's things going on, and how just minor changes in their diet can impact the medications that they're on. I have a client who recently turned 60, and on her 60th birthday, she squatted at 155 pounds, which, you know, she's a rock star. Not only once, not twice, but a full set at 10, you know, 10 reps. But she started working out with me about 2.5 years ago, and she, you know, had never worked out before. Everything was day one. It was brand new. So little by little, like building blocks, we build her up, we get her stronger, we get her moving. I talk to her during her workouts. It's never even a separate session. It's really kind of part of the rapport with the coach. And, you know, while we're working out, is like, hey, what did you have for dinner this weekend? What did you do this? We started talking about food. After about 9 months of consistently training twice a week and taking yoga 3 times a week, she came off of her high cholesterol medication, her blood pressure medication, and she has to take no anti-inflammatories, Advil, nothing. Joints are feeling fantastic. She's lost about 35 pounds. So all of those little changes, it was really subtle. It wasn't like give this up, big slash, and it was subtle. It was progressive. You know, we did it little by little, but those little steps made a big, big impact. And she told me the other day she was crawling in tunnels with her 2-year-old granddaughter at the park.
That is awesome.
So and her husband can do the same thing.
That is awesome. Well, wait a minute. That's awesome to speak of, that you're able to get somebody to feel that way, but honestly, that should be a norm.
That should be the norm.
And it's a shame.
Yes.
Technically, 60, wait a minute, I'm 58.
Yes, exactly.
So 60 shouldn't be that way.
No, it should not. It should not. But she's just come such a long way,
Right.
and I think I think it gives people hope, because 60 absolutely should not be that way. And if you actually go into many, many parts of the world, 60 is vibrant and vital, and you know, they're doing all kinds of things. And unfortunately, in the United States, we've come to this almost surrender that 60 is not old. You don't have to quite retire, but yeah, you're slow, you're kind of sick. It's okay because you're 60. No, that's not okay. And that's what we continue to, you know, train for. And that's what the endorphin effect is we're a training facility. We train for life. And what does that mean? That means training to get up in the morning without aches and pains to our elite athletes. It's anyone and every one of us, because a body squat realistically is just sitting down in a chair and getting right back up.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to conquer here. Is it's not about calories in, calories out. It's not about any of that. It's really just making a better lifestyle for yourself.
And that's what we have to try to formulate. Well, we do it for ourselves.
Right.
And then we try to get it to apply to the individual. There's nothing, for me, I'm sure the same with you, there's nothing more. I was just posted something on Facebook this morning, but I was just admiring one of my patients. I was so proud that I think she was trying to not butter me up, but just lift my spirits a little bit in words. But then when I read through, it's like, man, she kicked some ass. She lost weight, and
Is this
by
the one that she lost 25 pounds
Yes.
since the last visit? Yes,
Right.
yes, that
So,
was very inspiring.
Those of you who are on Facebook, Dr. Rick Saguil, DRRIC space Saguil, Saguil, and you'll see what I'm talking about with my warriors. I call them warriors because they had to go through the gauntlet of getting rid of, restricting a little bit, mostly bad stuff,
Yeah.
restricting it,
Yeah.
adding some form of activity that they might have been uncomfortable with before, but just invested in a little bit. Like what you said, you do bite-sized changes and daisy chain your bite-sized successes to a big ultimate.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So I think that's what we have to get. I personally, I look at 60 as being a challenge. I don't want to be the paradigm. In fact, one of my goals, the reason I was trained in Colorado, it's like the highest place on the continental in the U.S., is I eventually at 60 want to hit Everest Base Camp.
Sure.
I don't know if that will ever come to fruition, but I have to hold myself accountable somewhere.
Absolutely.
So
it
if I get there-
gives us something to work towards,
Yes,
and we all
exactly.
need that. Otherwise, we're stagnant.
Right, yeah, or, like this morning, I'll come up with excuses and
Yeah,
rational,
we all do
well,
it.
I can't, I'm busy.
Yes.
But I think that, number one, my kids are looking out for me and looking up to me. Number two, my patients are now doing the same.
Sure.
So I have to be accountable to them, so I'll put in as much, and I'm sure you will too,
Yeah.
into my lifestyle that I give to you.
Oh,
and my
absolutely.
clients,
Well, we
patients.
have to be role models, and I just feel like I am not someone that can say something without practicing it myself.
Right.
You know, otherwise it comes off as false and without integrity. And
Right.
I don't live my life like that.
But it isn't it's not that we're obliged to do that for getting more patients.
No.
It's because we know and tasted success.
Yes, yes.
As far as feeling good,
And-
youthful.
yes. Oh, absolutely. Because I'm 46. I'll be 47 in a month, and I have friends that don't do the things that they do with their kids, or just how vibrant you feel when you wake up in the morning, the energy that you have, no aches or pains, like all of that kind of stuff. And I think you mentioned the other day is 50 is when you start, the medications start, and
Well,
and that's something that I come from a lot of family members that have diabetes, and that has been a driving factor for my motivation. Is I see what that disease can do to your kidneys, your eyes, just all of it. It's like a slow little deterioration, and I will do anything in my power to avoid that.
Yeah, that's probably the good definition. So What Miwa had said is, I mentioned in the past, when I usually see my late 40s, early 50-year-old patients coming in for a wellness exam, that's when usually we've done 3 to 4 years of testing and it's not changing. And typically it's the waistline that I measure, the weight that we measure, the cholesterol that we measure, the diabetes or glucose and insulin that we measure. And I have videos that I'll put down below for those things. And unfortunately, if there's no change, that's where the time, not the aging process, but time will eventually catch up. And if you don't do anything to change, those numbers will only go higher.
Right.
And
right.
I think that the higher those inflammatory markers go and your waistline goes and your sedentary life goes, not that you guys do that, but the higher they go for an average American, the farther youth is going away.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's kind of like what we talked about yesterday, I believe, that I feel like a lot of people believe that there's this inverse relationship as we age, everything else, our wellness declines. And we, I think, together really want to see the opposite, where as we age, it's this parallel relationship that we continue to create wellness within ourselves, mentally, physically, and spiritually.
That's what I really feel. That's where the obligation, I think, comes when in the morning, I do my best thinking in the morning after my ginkgo biloba and when I have my tea. And these ideas come up, and usually the one linking thing with all the ideas is I have to do something to make people better.
Yes.
And because there's enough of the medicines, and that's fine. If you're on medicines, don't get me wrong, don't stop your medicines first off. But I would always say, once the Band-Aid is stable and the bleeding has stopped, try to work in reverse to get to a better place and take care of the root cause.
Right.
That got you to those medicines in the first place.
Right. Absolutely. And I think it takes a little bit of work to come off of that medication. And I think that's also daunting, right? It's not that I'm saying that it's easy to take a pill, but it's more in our minds, it's more concrete. I take this and it brings my blood pressure down, or I take this and my cholesterol level drops. And it's you can see it's action and result, so it's easy to comprehend, whereas something like I said, lifestyle changes like Carolyn made, dietary changes, just more movement, it's not immediate. You take a pill, you see the reaction. This takes a few months, but once it does, it's more natural. It's what your body is supposed to be doing.
Right.
It's taking care of itself, and
right.
There's not an exterior force that your body needs to now do what it's supposed to do anyways.
Right. I always give my young guys the option, not my young guys, my 30 to 40-year-olds, and that is kind of young.
Yeah, they're young.
But I'll tell them, would you fill a Ferrari with lawnmower gas or lawnmower oil? And you wouldn't. I mean, if you have to, you have to, but you're going to destroy, and if you don't destroy, then you have to take advantage of the Ferrari.
Right, absolutely.
So getting that Ferrari fine-tuned and driving it every once in a while or every day, I think would be good, but you have to have the right kind of oil or gas. What do you see? Well, happy birthday ahead of time.
Oh, thank you. It's a little bit, but yeah.
But what do you have a vision of where you would be at the age of 70?
I'd love to be by water. Beach would be fantastic. And hopefully by then, I've got a little bit of time to enjoy the beach. So somewhere by the water, but doing the things that I love to do outside, being active, walking, sunshine, those are all things that I love. And then by that time, I'm kind of assuming I might be a grandmother. I've got a couple of kids, so they probably will have children. But being active with them. And one story I would like to share was my love and passion for yoga began with my grandfather. I was probably 6 or 7 years old, sitting on the floor with him doing pranayama, which is breath work. And he really taught me not everything that I know, because I obviously went and got a certification and did many schoolings and things like that. But he really started that, he planted the seed. And I remember at age 91 seeing him in the middle of the room doing a headstand, just unsupported. And for me, 91. He was 91 years old. They would visit. My grandparents would visit every summer from India. It was hot there. It was better here. So they would, be visiting, and he would practice yoga with us. Even then, we'd be home from school. And he was 91 years old, unsupported headstand. And for me, that is an image that will never leave my mind, because I think if you can do that, then, you're doing something right.
Maybe that's what we have to look forward to I should probably ask you, where do you see or what do you envision at 91?
If I can be doing that, that would be fantastic. But I think 70 is a little bit more feasible.
Yeah, let's just shoot for that. We'll take the next interview.
The next one, right? The next one, we'll talk about 91. So, and that's kind of what I tell my clients too. You know, no one loves a push-up, and I say one day you'll fall down and you'll need to push yourself up off the ground, and you'll remember me that day, and you'll say, thank God I did those 10 push-ups 15 times, because now I can push myself up off the ground one time. And we really train for life. Those things, you know, you don't want to be where you're relying on someone to help you physically. If we can do that ourselves, I think that's so empowering.
Yeah, the last thing I want is for my great-grandkids to, number one, I don't know who they are, number two, take care of me.
Yes, yes.
And I wouldn't want to unload that kind of burden. Knock on wood that I never get to that point, but I think that's where the investment comes.
Absolutely.
In the lifestyle, the exercise, the mindful practice, the deep sleep, the social gathering. So, well, I really appreciate you following your vision to here.
Thank you.
Because honestly, you're allowing me to follow my vision, and I'm not sure where it's going, but...
Well, together I think we're making good changes.
Yes, I do. And I think if we do great things together and we feel confident doing those things, then everybody else will benefit from it.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for, is to build a community around health and wellness.
This is what we have to do. So I don't know of any other wellness center. There's a rec center in Elgin. Is there any other wellness centers around here?
Not that I know of. Not that's as all-encompassing as the Endorphin Effect is. And I don't mean to say that because I own it, but really that was the driving force. We didn't want to be just a yoga studio or just a gym. We really wanted to be a place where people come for lifelong changes.
This is fantastic. Well, again, thank you very much, Miwa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for joining the Endorphin Effect. I'm very proud and excited for what the next steps are going to hold.
We're going to do great things together.
Absolutely.
Thank you.